Formula One fans, sensational news. Is Ferrari for sale? This is the question everyone is asking after the absolute disaster in Qatar. And Piero Ferrari's response was categorical and brutally harsh. But his words about the current crisis make it clear we're facing an unprecedented situation in the team's recent history. The son of Il Drake witnessed live one of the worst performances in recent years. And what he said after the race is absolutely devastating. A blow, a punch to the stomach. These are his exact words. But there's more, because this crisis isn't just technical, it's also deeply human. Hamilton has become an enormous problem for Maranello. And the decisions Ferrari must make are absolutely dramatic. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to tell you is fundamental to understanding the future. Let's start with concrete facts. Ferrari in Qatar put on the absolute worst performance of the entire year, even worse than the disqualifications from the second race of the season in China. Piero Ferrari personally witnessed this total disaster from the pit wall, and at the end of the race he spoke about the non-existent performance of the team created by his father, Enzo. There are simply no more words to describe the profound disappointment of this 2025 season. Ferrari started, as we all remember perfectly, with clear championship objectives. They wanted to win the title after years of waiting. But from the very beginning of the season, it became obvious that the SF25 project was absolutely not up to the task. And from there, all the problems started that have dragged on relentlessly until this tragic moment. A season that needs to be completely archived and forgotten, both on and off the track. And here come the statements that literally froze everyone. Piero Ferrari said word for word, "After a race like that, there's little to say. A blow and a punch to the stomach. It hurts to see a Ferrari like this." Brutally harsh words spoken by someone who knows the glorious history of this team perfectly. But then he added something even more important. "I take comfort thinking there's still one more race, the last of the season, and then we archive this championship." Archive. This is the tremendously significant key word. Throwing away an entire season as if it never existed. As if it was just a nightmare. And then came the fundamental historical comparison. In Ferrari's history, we've had ups and downs. In racing, it happens. I remember 1973 and the World Championships of 75 after a growing 74 season. The crisis of the 90s and the subsequent triumphs. Piero Ferrari knows perfectly the difficult moments his team has experienced over the decades. But despite this dramatic situation, Piero Ferrari still maintains his faith. "It's part of racing, so I'm confident we'll recover. We have things that haven't worked. But I can guarantee that at Maranello, we also have many other things that work perfectly. The challenge is putting them all together to get the maximum possible. And I'm sure we'll do it. I have faith in the good things we have at home. Ferrari will return to winning. We definitely won't give up. I know the excellence we have at our disposal." Words of genuine hope. But the question everyone is asking is, will this excellence really be enough to lift up such a dramatically compromised situation? And then finally came the question everyone was anxiously waiting for. Is Ferrari for sale? What's the economic value of the team on the market? And here Piero Ferrari's answer was harsh and absolutely categorical. "It would have a value if it were for sale like the other teams. We've been present in Formula One for 75 years and we are not for sale. Period. We are not for sale." A clear statement without any possibility of interpretation. Ferrari is absolutely not on the market. Despite the devastating crisis, despite the catastrophic results, Ferrari remains Ferrari, an untouchable symbol. But pay attention, because this is undoubtedly the darkest crisis in Ferrari's recent history. I've personally been following Grand Prix racing for several decades. I've been following Formula One since the 70s, and I never remember such a dark and black moment for Ferrari as the current one. We're in a situation of total and absolute crisis. Not just a crisis of sporting results, there's also a devastating human crisis that's tearing the team apart from within. And at the center of this crisis is precisely Lewis Hamilton, who has become an enormous and insurmountable problem for Ferrari. Hamilton expected so much from this season. We all expected great things from the 7-time world champion. And instead, what happened? He hasn't achieved even 10% of what he and we ardently hoped for. He's completely demotivated, to the point of becoming a major structural problem for Ferrari. Hamilton is in total crisis of results. It's unclear whether he's a driver who is now definitively past the peak point of his career. In football, we know perfectly well that beyond 40 years old, you absolutely can't perform. In Formula One, there are those who, like Fernando Alonso, still hold up incredibly well at 42. But Sebastian Vettel and Michael Schumacher himself with Mercedes clearly remind us that beyond 40, you become a driver capable of staying on the grid due to accumulated experience, but no longer for pure sporting ability. And here comes the absolutely most painful point. $100 million was literally wasted on a completely unfortunate contract. This enormous money should have gone to Adrian Newey. It should have paid the salary of the absolute design genius. But Newey didn't find a satisfactory agreement with Ferrari and went away to Aston Martin. And so all the horses escaped from the stable. Enrico Cardile escaped, Simone Resta escaped, and they accepted putting Frederick Vasseur interim at the head of the technical office in 2024. A very serious strategic error. Because Vasseur, as much as he's a good person and professional, as much as he's a good team principal from a managerial point of view, is absolutely not a technical designer. He doesn't have specific technical experience sufficient to autonomously decide the design lines of the 2025 car. The result was there for everyone to see, a total technical disaster. And we're collecting absolutely terrible moments. Charles Leclerc does the maximum possible in a desperate attempt to recover grid positions, and he makes us experience terrible thrills like that consecutive double spin yesterday evening that will remain forever in Formula One's annals. A moment that will remain imprinted in the videos and bitter memories of this cursed 2025 season. It was lucky he didn't hit anything anywhere. The Qatar track fortunately has very wide runoff areas, but it was a thrill that absolutely shouldn't have to happen. Neither for the driver nor for us Ferrari fans who are suffering. And the moment has finally arrived to take definitive stock of this catastrophic season. We must immediately decide what needs to be stopped, and what's fundamental to do to absolutely avoid repeating such a tragedy in 2026. In my personal opinion, Hamilton should lucidly acknowledge the situation. He should clearly see that he's the negative protagonist of the darkest moment of his career, and he should spontaneously surrender the mandate of his contract. Ferrari surely has contractual exit clauses from the agreement with Hamilton. The time has come to adopt drastic measures already at this end of the season. I personally would ask Hamilton for an honorable step back. We must objectively acknowledge that his career beyond the undeniable limits of this SF25 has definitely passed its peak moment. I would absolutely be of the opinion that Hamilton needs to be replaced with young Ollie Behrman already at the beginning of 2026. By now, Hamilton clearly demonstrates he no longer has sufficient motivation to justify a monster salary of $100 million driving a Ferrari. And then the other absolutely necessary step: the immediate replacement of those managerial figures who brought Ferrari to this 2025 tragedy. Remember that everything starts precisely from 2024, exactly from mid-season. The time has come to seriously question team principal Frederick Vasseur. In other historical periods of Ferrari, he would have been gone before the end of the year. But now that Stellantis is completely in French hands, Vasseur is particularly welcomed by the French. Hamilton out already at the end of the 2025 season, immediately leaving his place to Ollie Behrman. And Vasseur, an enormous question mark. But at least Benedetto Vigna should sacrifice himself out of absolute respect for Ferrari. This is my sincere opinion. Hamilton and Vigna should surrender their mandate at the end of the season. This is exactly what's needed to save Ferrari from this unprecedented crisis. Immediate drastic decisions are necessary.